And we are live. Welcome to episode 4 of Totally Recalled MMA. I'm your host, Cal. I've got Ray with me. Ray, say what's up for the fans
What's
out
up,
there.
everybody? We back, episode 4.
We back. If you haven't noticed, we are missing our third co-host. That is Tommy. Tommy wasn't able to be with us this week, so it's just going to be Ray and I. We'll back and forth this week, and yeah, we've got a lot to go into. We saw UFC Orlando this past weekend. It was an exciting card. We're going to touch on that. We're also going to touch on UFC 222. That is this weekend. That is headlined by Chris Cyborg and Yana Kunitskaya, and that is for the featherweight belt, women's featherweight belt. Cyborg and Yana stepping in last minute to save the card. That card is also co-mained by Frankie Edgar. Still, he's fighting Brian Ortega, featherweight on the rise. And yeah, we're super excited. We're going to touch on some other news. We've got some news coming in about John Jones. We've got some news coming in about a lot of other stuff. So we're just going to touch up and we're just going to get back into it. Ray, are you ready, bro?
Oh, I'm ready.
Hell yeah. All right. So UFC Orlando this weekend, man, I was able to catch much of it. I was able to catch most of the fights, and it was definitely a good card for what it was. I feel like as far as ratings wise, I heard it did very good. This card was headlined by Josh Emmett and Jeremy Stephens, two higher ranked featherweights going at it, and Jeremy Stephens defeating Josh Emmett via second round KO with 1:35 left on the clock in the second round. Let's just go into that real quick because there's a lot of discussion surrounding this finish. Okay, Jeremy Lil Heathen Stephens knocking out Josh Emmett in the second round. Both of these guys we knew going into this fight were two hard-hitting featherweights. We knew it was going to be a freaking slugfest. Just off the way that Jeremy Stephens fights, we're very familiar to the way he fights because he's a veteran. He's got a lot of fights under his belt. And also the way we've kind of seen Josh Emmett fight in his last recent fights. We knew it was going to be a barn burner. We knew these guys were going to duke it out. And it looked like they were going back and forth a little bit in those first rounds. I can't call exactly who won that first round. I think Stephens had it a little bit. Emmett was able to tag Stephens also, I believe, and also was tagging him up a little bit in the second round. But ultimately, Stephens was able to catch Emmett with a hook, drop him, and then came with a vicious attack of elbows. There was a knee that was thrown, and it was a very controversial finish. A lot of controversy going around in the MMA world surrounding that finish. Ray, what are your thoughts on that finish? Can you walk us through it, and then maybe give us kind of your thoughts on if it was legal, if it was illegal, just for people who may not have seen the finish? What are your thoughts on it?
Okay, first of all, the fight was amazing. Like you said, I thought it was going to be a barn burner, and it was. Josh Emmett actually dropped Jeremy Stephens in the first round, so it was a crazy fight, you know. But we'll take our focus onto this knee. So, in my opinion about the knockout, it's hard to call because a lot of these states, they don't have the same rule sets. And in Orlando, they say if you lift your opponent off the ground and he has one hand up, you can knee him. But you clearly see both of his knees are down. And he lifts them up, one hand is up, and he knees them. But how do we call it legal? I don't get how it works because no one has. We need to have all the rule sets the same. And a lot of fighters aren't familiar with that, you know. They're just going in there to fight, and then you're in the middle of a war, you know. You're doing everything you can to finish the fight. If it was illegal, I think Damian Maguire's been around for a long time. I think if he suspected it to be an illegal knee, he would have stopped the fight. So I'm just going to call it legal for now. But after watching all these replays, it's really hard to call.
It's really hard to call, and I really, you know, I'm going to disagree with you on kind of like. Obviously, like the states need to have the same rules. The commissions all need to have the same rules as far as, you know, those knees go. However, I do believe like no matter what state you're in, if the fighter has both knees on the ground, he is considered a down opponent, and he can't take and he can't take a knee like that. You know, we both just watched the replay again. You said that you saw both of his knees on the ground, and even though like yes, he had one hand up in the air. The knee was thrown. And I think that the knee was illegal. I really think that the consensus among the MMA community is that knee that he threw was illegal. The only debate, however, is whether that knee landed and did it land accurate and did it do enough to influence the fight. What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, from watching it at a certain angle, from the angle from behind Josh Emmett, uh, it looks like it missed his head. Actually, it didn't look like the knee had contacted him at all. But then again, who knows, man? You can't really see like what's going on. Like he did throw a knee, it could have landed flush, but from the angle I saw it, it didn't really land clean. It could have grazed the top of his head. It could have grazed the back of his head when he was coming back down from throwing a knee. But like you said, it's a lot of the fighters say it's illegal. So I mean, I think as of now, it isn't illegal because it wasn't called as illegal. But when you go back and look at the replay, it's kind of like, there's been so many fights have been stopped from throwing knees like that. So it just sucks that it had to happen that way. And I heard that Josh Emmett's going to try to testify and see what's going on about that. So
yeah, him and his team are definitely gonna appeal. I know he's a team alpha male fighter, I believe.
yeah,
Yeah, so he's managed by Uriah Faber, who's a smart veteran, and obviously the smart thing for his team to do is to appeal it. However, I think I don't blame anybody really. It's hard for me to blame the ref. The only thing that I can really blame is the fact that replay isn't really a thing in Florida. If they had gone back to the instant replay after the fight, I'm like instantaneously after the fight, I do believe that maybe they would have called this a no contest. If Mergliotta had caught the knee, if Mergliotta had seen, I do believe there were some elbows that landed to the back of Emmett's head. If he had seen those things, I do believe that he would have stepped in there, stopped the fight. Maybe a physician would have stepped in, asked Emmett if he was okay, asked him if he was ready to go, and then it would have started again. But this sport is so fast moving. This is all within the same 5 to 10 seconds of the fight. I mean, these were the last 10 seconds of the fight, and it's very hard to determine. And by the way it looked when Emmett got dropped, he looked like he was kind of already on his way out. He didn't look like he was defending himself from those elbows. Definitely not the knee. And then I do believe like Stevens did kind of like pick him up, throw him back down, and then come back down with those vicious elbows. I think Stevens, first of all, has some of the meanest ground and pound in the featherweight division just because of those elbows. They looked sharp. What do you think, man?
Yeah, man. I mean, he's one powerful guy. Like he says, he knocks people out stiff as he did. Emmett was stiff after those elbows, so he's a hard hitter.
He's a hard hitter, and he was, I believe, who we all picked to win against Emmett. However, it did look like a close fight up until then. Yeah, this is just something that we're going to need to keep our eye on. And like I said, our sport is growing. Our sport is still trying to figure itself out as far as the commissions go and all the rules and stuff like that. And hopefully this can be a learning experience for other commissions. And whether or not the appeal will stick, what do you think? You think if Emmett appeals as he intends to, what do you think that the Florida State Athletic Commission is going to rule in favor of?
It's hard to really tell like what they can do about it. I'm glad he's doing it because a lot of people don't agree with it, and a lot of people agree with the decision. So hopefully everything goes in his favor because I like to see the rematch. Why not? It was a fun fight and while it lasted. So hopefully things go his way and maybe we'll see a rematch.
Yeah, let's say Emmett does secure the W after the appeal. What do you think is next for Emmett in terms of the featherweight division? I think he was ranked. Do you know when he was ranked going into this fight? I think he was ranked 4 or 5.
I do not know he was.
What do you think? Do you think this warrants a title shot? Obviously, we have a huge featherweight matchup coming up this weekend between the number 2 ranked Frankie Edgar and the UFC protege Brian Ortega. What would you like to see Stevens do? I guess after this win.
Yeah, man. He'll probably face the loser of that fight. I would think. Coming off his pretty big win. Josh Emmett had huge hype coming off his fight after knocking out Ricardo Lamas like that. So I think that this is a fight that can get him up in the contenders bracket. I think he could potentially fight the loser of Ortega and Frankie. But here's where it gets interesting: is because he already fought Frankie and Frankie beat him. So do they do Frankie? If Frankie were to lose this fight, would they do Frankie and Little Heathen 2, or how do you think they would play that out?
I don't know. I did watch the Frankie versus Stevens fight. I watched it when it happened. That fight happened last year, right?
Yeah,
And Frankie won by unanimous decision. I think it was a clear victory for him. I really don't know. This featherweight division is kind of up in the air. It's definitely a stacked division, so he could go against any one of these contenders. He's definitely one that, even though he's a veteran, he's been fighting for a really long time. I think he's been in the UFC for like 10 or 11 years now. He's good, man. He keeps getting better, and this was a good showing for him, and this was good for the UFC and good for the featherweight division.
definitely.
Definitely. Other fights on the card that we liked. I definitely want to talk about Max Griffin defeating Mike Perry via unanimous decision. We talked about Mike Perry last week. We all went with him. He was the Max Griffin was actually the biggest betting underdog on the card. So Mike Perry was really positioned to win here. It was definitely a barn burner. He definitely wanted to stand and strike with Max Griffin, but I think Mike Perry is starting to run into kind of like a wall when he faces fighters who have, technical abilities outside of striking. Mike Perry just wants to stand and strike, and I think what he's realizing is that he can't always just do that. He has to really start to round his game, because he's going to run into technical fighters that are able to outsmart him. Even though Perry was pushing the pace of the fight, and Griffin definitely respected his power the whole fight, he was able to just kind of outclass him. And it was a great fight to me. I really wanted Perry to win. I think he may have edged out round one. That was the only round I think he may have edged out, if that. But Griffin, great showing. I do believe it was his debut in the UFC. I could be wrong about that, but it's whatever. I'm pretty sure it was his debut that he came in. And defeating Mike Perry, he gets a big win. And I really just kind of want to talk about what you think is next for Mike Perry, because he is such a popular name. Like we said last week, he has such an electric personality, and it attracts fans like us, and it attracts casuals. I mean, he's on the Instagram, he's talking shit. He was talking big shit before this fight. We really thought that maybe this fight would set him up for a fight against Till or any one of those other welterweight contenders. What do you think about Mike Perry's abilities and just kind of like where he can go from here?
Yeah, man. I mean, I know he's coming off a loss, but he's still like a top level guy, and I don't see why. I mean, he's coming off a loss. Robbie Lawler's coming off a loss. His name's big enough to get that fight. He wanted that fight. Why not? Why not do it? And his name is still up there. He's a fighter that we know who's going to always go in there and try to get the finish. Same with Robbie Lawler. Like I said, he called him out. So I think that they should do Robbie Lawler versus Mike Perry. That'd be a fun fight.
Yeah, I think Lawler versus Perry would be good. And we know that, the UFC, man, it all comes down to ratings, and all comes down to viewership. And Mike Perry has been able to amass a huge fan base over the past year and a half or so since he came into the UFC. I mean, the dude is still, he still has a great record. I believe with this loss, he's still only 11-3. And I don't know who I'd like to see a matchup. I mean, I would like to see a matchup against anybody. I just want to see this guy back. But I would like to see him kind of round his game a little bit, and when he fights guys that have kind of that technical ability that's outside of striking, he's got to be able to figure it out, or else he's going to keep losing.
Definitely. I
think in his next fight, I don't know if he should fight a ranked guy or whatever, but I do know that after looking at his tweets and whatnot, like, he hasn't lost any motivation. He's still the same platinum Mike Perry.
Definitely.
He's still ready to come back and bang. I sent a picture of his injury. I mean, at least his eye.
Oh yeah, he was banged up, man.
Bro.
He was banged up. Yeah, but that's the thing. I just feel like his name is just so, like, he has a big name, a big fan base, like you said. I still feel like he can get a top ranked guy just off of his name, and they know what he's going to bring. They know what he's going to bring to the fight. But I mean, he did lose to a guy that we weren't too familiar with, actually. We didn't really know too much about this guy. But I mean, he came in there and showed great striking. Like, he's well rounded, and he actually picked Perry apart. So hats off to him. But
hats off to Max Griffin, man. I mean,
definitely
for sure.
He dropped Perry. I thought he was going to end the fight after that. It was pretty clean, right on the chin. He fell to the ground. I thought it was going to be over, but I mean Perry bounced back because he's just a warrior. He has a heart of a lion. So I'll always commend him for that. But yeah, I still feel like he can get one of those top ranked fights just because of who he is.
Yeah, he's a warrior, man. Like, we love these guys. We love these guys, win or loss, man. I mean, and it's their personalities that provide the entertainment. And all of his fights, win or lose, are entertaining as hell.
For sure.
And with that, maybe just touch up a little bit on OSP, who we saw come in against Elir Latifi in a light heavyweight showdown. And I think that was the fight that surprised us the most. Latifi was able to submit OSP via guillotine, a standing guillotine in the first round.
Crazy.
And it was crazy. It was crazy because when these guys were sizing up, when these guys were squaring off, I was like, look at that height difference. I think Latifi came in, I mean, not that he came in, but like he's like 5'10".
Yeah.
And OSP is like 6'2", 6'3". So that was the thing that caught me out. I was like, oh my God, this is a mismatch. But like we see, man, these wrestlers and these BJJ guys are just able to figure out a way to suppress the height, suppress whatever advantage is coming towards their way. And yeah, it was just superior tactics that allowed Latifi to strike, to stand and bang with OSP, and then come in with the clinch and then lock up that guillotine. Man, what do you think about that fight?
Yeah, man. I think that the biggest problem for OSP is he was fighting like he was Latifi's size. He was hunched over. It's kind of like, he's so much bigger. You should be standing up straight. You should be keeping your distance. And I don't know. I just feel like I was completely surprised. I did not think this fight was going to go like that at all. And not only did he connect a shot on OSP, he hurt him terribly. Like, he hurt him so bad. And he finished it with a standing guillotine with the guy who's way taller than him. So it looked kind of awkward how he's kind of like all hunched over. And I thought he was going to pull his head off. It was insane. It was a fun fight while it lasted.
And he put OSP to sleep. I mean, OSP did tap. I don't think the ref was able to see it because he tapped on the side that was opposite the referee. So the ref did not see it. And Latifi did speak on that and just say, he's choking until the ref breaks in. And OSP just went to sleep in there, and that was astonishing to watch him put down a guy that big.
Yeah, man, it was awesome to see. It was definitely, I think, probably one of the biggest upsets on the card. I mean, I don't think anybody picked. Actually, what's her name on the analysis show? KV Heat. She picked Latifi to win, so she's the only one. So hats off to her because
bro, she guessed. She guessed. Anyone with some sense would have picked OSP, but I mean, maybe she would. Yeah, maybe she pulled it off. We've also got the just touch briefly on the co-main. Jessica Andrade defeating Tisha Torres. Big unanimous decision. Any thoughts on that fight, Ray? I mean, I know that you're I know that you watched it and that fight kind of excited you. What do you have to say about that fight?
Yeah, man. I thought the fight would go out like that. I knew that Jessica Andrade would be able to take her down, which she did consecutively, and it played out just how I thought. I knew she was going to be able to strike with Tisha Torres. I knew she was going to take her down whenever she wanted, and that's pretty much the summary of the fight, was her taking her down, beating her in every aspect of the fight. And I mean, Tisha Torres looked great, but it's when you're going against someone who's that strong of a female, like, she's insanely strong for her size. She's so small, and she will just, once she gets a hold of you, it's kind of like there's nothing you can do about it. You're getting put on the ground, you're getting dropped on your head, and you're getting beat down. And that was the moral of the story. So I mean, it was a great fight. So hopefully, I think that definitely puts Andrade into title contention for sure. I think she definitely gets the next title shot for sure.
For sure. She was already ranked number 2.
Definitely.
And she definitely should get the next shot at Rose after Rose and Joanna face off at UFC 223 in April. Fight that you are going to.
Ooh, I cannot wait.
Dude, you are such a lucky dog. Let's look ahead real quick to next weekend, because we've got a good card going on this weekend. UFC is back with another pay-per-view. This is UFC 222. We've got Chris Cyborg stepping in last minute. When I say last minute, I mean, I think she had like good 4 or 5 weeks in advance. Against Yana Kunitskaya, who, correct me if I'm wrong, Ray, she is the Invicta 135-pound women's champion. Am I right about
is
that?
correct.
Yes. And dude, I'm on the UFC site right now. Her picture's not even on the her picture's not even on the shit. I mean, does the UFC, do they care? I mean,
just another sacrifice for Cyborg. Just go
literally a
another sacrifice.
Lamb. That is no disrespect to the Invicta champ, Yana Kunitskaya, but other than Cyborg fighting home just a few months ago, it literally just is another example of the UFC just giving their offerings, giving their blessings to Cyborg. Okay, here's another chick that you get to beat down and take down. How do you see this fight going? Do I even need to ask?
Yeah, because I got my opinion about it. So it's actually kind of funny because I was watching some of the interviews on this fight, and Yano was actually talking about Cyborg, saying that, oh, I don't think Cyborg has knockout power. So I was like, whoa, that's a huge statement. And that kind of made me think, like, whoa, is this Yana chick about to upset the world? Is she about to go in there and knock out Cyborg? Because she just said something I think that I never thought I would hear in my life. She said that she doesn't think Cyborg has knockout power. What? That is the craziest thing I've ever heard. So that makes the fight more entertaining for me because now I'm thinking, what is she about to bring to the table? This could be a fun fight. You never know.
I feel like she may have more power than we give her, and I literally just say that off of watching Embedded like the past couple of days. Embedded is kind of like the vlog series that the UFC does on their YouTube channel where they kind of document fight week. And I was just looking at her physique, Yana's physique, and she's got some arms, bro. She got some muscle on her, bro.
I peep. She's kind of cut knees. I ain't gonna lie.
Yo, she got the gun. She got bigger guns than Holly.
For real.
Yeah, I think we're obviously gonna watch this, of course, and we're gonna see what's going on with this fight. I think it's Yana's coming in a huge underdog, and this should be another victory for Cyborg. But the fight on this card that I wish was main eventing, it's not. But we had Ortega stepping in to fight Frankie Edgar after the champion Max Holloway pulled out, and Edgar maybe obviously a little disappointed that he doesn't get to fight for that title that he's been trying to get to for so long, that 145 featherweight title. So now it's just like another obstacle in his way, but it's not just another obstacle, dude. This kid Brian Ortega is 13-0. He's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt, and he's 13-0. And he, in his last fight against Cub Swanson, he just looked so good. And I don't want to call a winner of this fight, but I just have a feeling, Frankie Edgar's never been finished. And I don't want to say that this fight's going to end in a finish, but I do see the younger guy in Ortega. I just have a feeling, man. And I know you love this kid, so I'm going to let you run with it. What do you think is going to happen in this fight?
Yeah, man. Honestly, I know it's going to sound crazy because you said Edgar hasn't been finished, which is true. But I see Ortega finishing Frankie no problem, man. I just, Frankie likes to resort to wrestling. You don't want to take this guy down. He will snap you in a submission the moment you grab him. And it's just so terrifying to see. Cub Swanson said, I tapped really quickly because I felt like I was going to die. Do you know how scary that is? That is scary to you.
His shit was getting cranked. That guillotine.
And what's more insane about it is that he repositioned himself in midair. He lost it, repositioned himself, and just started squeezing as tight as he could. And I'm just kind of like, he was about to decapitate Cub Swanson in the head. So, yeah, man, I don't see Edgar winning this fight. And the thing is, Ortega has great hands. He doesn't get to show it a lot, but if you watch some of his fights, he does stand and bang. He's ready. He's like, let's go. I'm ready to bang. We take it to the floor. I'm ready to go to the floor. So I'm gonna call a winner. I see T-City, my boy, Triangle City. I see him taking this fight, man.
I see him taking it too, and it's only because I guess Edgar hasn't fought since May of last year. His last win was against Yair Rodriguez, who he was clearly overmatching. And Yair was kind of like a prospect, and I don't know how we all expected him to do against Edgar, but Edgar was able to take advantage of that. That was a big fight for him because Yair is a big name that the UFC was pushing, and he dismantled him rather quickly. Yeah, just the wins that Ortega has been able to get in his winning fashion. I see him winning this fight, and it really does make me feel for Edgar because, yeah, after if he, I don't want to say after, but like if he loses this fight, what's going to be of his career? Is he going to be able to get another title shot? I mean, what do you think, man?
It's hard to call, man. You have a guy who's been trying to get back to that title for so long, and you're this close. If you lose this fight, who knows if he'll ever get another chance at the title? There's so many contenders coming up in this division. It's just hard to call. He might have to get through some scary guys again. He might have to fight Jeremy Stephens again, and Jeremy Stephens is looking like a complete different fighter from the last time they fought. So it's all about he needs to win this fight. This is the fight to get to the title, and if he loses this fight, that just might be, I don't want to say it's the end of Frankie Edgar, but I'm saying it might be a long time until his name is in title contention. So hopefully things go well, but Triangle City all day.
Ooh, I mean, yeah, dude, we're gonna see. And that's the fight that's got me most. That's the fight that I'm gonna be glued to the TV watching. That's the fight that I'm gonna be in my living room telling all my friends to shut the hell up for, because I'm gonna be glued to my TV screen watching that. That is the fight to watch on Saturday night. Some other names we've got going on that card. We've got Sugar Sean O'Malley.
O'Malley.
Yeah, he's from Dana White's was that Tuesday Night Contender Series. He's able to win that. Was like a tournament style? Was that a tournament style TV show?
Not really. It was kind of like pretty much they take their top contenders in different little organizations and they line them up and they fight for a chance to get a 3-fight contract in the UFC. And some people have lost and they've got a second chance to come back because Dana liked them that much. But it's really all who Dana likes. And Sugar O'Malley was Dana's like number one. Like as soon as he saw him fight, he was like, the guy I want is O'Malley. Like before, as soon as the broadcast, and he was like, I want O'Malley. O'Malley's in
because he's got it. First off, he's got a great fighting style. I like all the kicks that he throws, dude. I just love fighters that throw fucking huge kicks, man. That's just I'm into that kung fu stuff, man. And O'Malley's got an electric personality. He's a big weed smoker. We love that. And yeah, man, it's gonna be dope to see him. He's fighting Andre Sukhamthoth. Sukhamthoth. So you know a little bit about him, and you know a little bit about how this fight's gonna go. O'Malley's 9-0. And this is definitely a test for him. So we're going to keep our eye on O'Malley. We definitely think that's a fight to watch. Another name on this card that I thought to bring up was the UFC debut of Mackenzie Dern. She is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion, one of the best in the world at Jiu-Jitsu. And her debut in the UFC has kind of been a long time coming because she's a name that I heard on the radar at least a couple years back when I first got into MMA. And she's fighting a girl named Ashley Yoder, the Spider Monkey. I'm excited to see her. I can't really call how these fighters match up, but I think Mackenzie Dern is definitely an athlete to watch. We're definitely going to want to watch her, how her striking is, because we all know that she's a jiu-jitsu world champ and we want to see that. But I think what's also more important is to see how well-rounded her skills are as they transition to MMA.
Definitely.
This is going to be a fight to watch. I mean, the UFC is going to get my $60 for this one, regardless of the fact that the champ Holloway pulled out. And just kind of with that, let's just get into some other MMA stuff. The first thing I want to bring up is our boy, the notorious Conor McGregor, sent out an Instagram post last week where he was kind of talking, I'm the best at this. I'm a real fighter. I threw my name into the hat when Holloway pulled out to fight Frankie Edgar. And that's super interesting because that was kind of a matchup that we thought that we might see when McGregor was still at 145. Do you give any kind of credit to McGregor? Like how much credit do you give this? How much weight do you kind of give McGregor? Do you think it would have happened? Do you think that how they would match up? What do you think about Conor just kind of putting his name out there and saying that he would have fought Edgar and he threw his name in there? What do you think?
Yeah, it just shows the person who Conor is. It just shows like his personality, and he's gonna fight whoever, whenever, whatever weight class. He'll fight a heavyweight if he could. Like, that's just him, and it's dope to have a champion like that. And I don't think the fight would have happened just based on the fact that they wouldn't have had enough time to promote this fight, and like you said, when Connor's name's in it, they're gonna have to have a big advertisement. The king is back. You can't just throw him in there. Oh, Connor's fighting here. It's kind of have to be like you have to build Connor because he'll draw in so much attention. So you don't want to kind of throw him in on a couple weeks' notice. It's kind of like even though I still think his name would sell regardless. If you could have thrown him like a week, they would have been like, oh shit, Connor's fighting. Everyone would have been like pay-per-view. But I feel like the smart thing would do was to not let him fight just because you want to be able to build the crazy factor of the fight.
Yeah, it wouldn't have made much sense. From what I heard, Connor was trying to fight him at if Connor was, when he did throw his name in, he was trying to fight him at a catch weight of, I believe it was like 165 he wanted to fight him at. And, I think what it does say is that the king is ready. He's ready to come back. I mean, and he will truly fight anybody. It's not a matter of who. It's just a matter of how and when, and the money has to line up, and the UFC has to get his promo together. And you're right, like 4 to 5 weeks out is not enough. Is not really enough to do it. Also, he hasn't been stripped of his 155-pound title, so it really wouldn't have made much sense. I do believe that if these guys would have matched up and fought at any weight class, that McGregor's he's just too big, too long. He would have put the answer down. Definitely. But I definitely do think it is of some significance that he did put that post out there, and it was confirmed that he did put his name in the hat. And it's good, man, because we know Connor's back in training, and we know that when he's ready, he's going to be ready. And it just shows he's not finished with this game. He's not finished. He is ready. And I know we want him to fight the winner or the loser, whatever, of Khabib and Ferguson, who are fighting at UFC 223 in April. We know that he still wants to fight, and I think that that's of significant importance.
For sure, man. Yeah, it's dope that he's letting everyone know that, hey, I'm on standby. I'm ready to go. I'm ready for a fight. So I cannot wait to see him back in the octagon. I don't care who it's against. I just want to see him back.
Just want to see him back. I definitely think that this is our biggest sign yet that he will return in 2018. And
for sure.
When we were talking about our dream fight scenarios last week, that was something that we really, really hoped for. And my dream fight was Connor against anybody. So that's what's going on. Just to touch on some other news in the MMA world. Yesterday, Jon Jones had his meeting with the California State Athletic Commission. For those of you who may not be aware of the situation with Jon Jones, last summer he had his, I don't want to say his third straight, because the first drug that he popped for wasn't necessarily a performance enhancer. He popped for cocaine, but this, he tested positive for a steroid called Turinabol, which I was able to do some research on. Basically he fought Cormier last month at, I believe that was UFC 214. Am I right?
I believe so.
Yeah, it was 214. It was back in last July. He defeated Cormier by KO or TKO.
Yeah, via head kick.
Bounced his. It wasn't. I mean, the head kick started it off. He bounced his fucking shin bone off Cormier's forehead and just charged the dude like a savage. And that was the first time we had ever seen Cormier finished. Am I correct?
That is the first.
Incredible performance by Jon Jones, and a great fight put up by Cormier. But
for sure.
In the I believe it was the after the fight drug test, the drug test that he did immediately following the fight, he tested positive. Jones tested positive the previous year for another controlled substance when they set up that Cormier fight. And he finally was able to sit down in front of the California State Athletic Commission and hear what they had to say. It's important to note that Jones is facing heat from not only the California State Athletic Commission, but also USADA as well, which is the commission that was hired by the UFC to oversee all doping. So when you commit an infraction in the UFC, you're not only going to have to deal with that state's commissioning body, but also USADA as a whole. So this meeting yesterday was just with the state of California. And Yeah, bottom line, Jones was fined $205,000. That is 40% of the purse that he made from the Cormier fight last summer. So that's, I mean, just speak on that fine. That's a cheap load of money, bro.
Yeah, it definitely is, man. And not only was he fined, he got his MMA license revoked in California. So this is pretty serious, man. And I know earlier on before our podcast, we were talking about how we think he was going to be back. I still think potentially he could be back, but we don't know how hard this suspension is going to be from USADA because we haven't heard anything about a suspension from them yet. But hopefully we see him this year. I mean, we still have a chance to see John Jones this year. So we won't count him out. It just sucks, you know. I definitely think. How do you think this affects his legacy? You know, like this guy it's a huge star in the MMA world. So and to get this is like you said, strike three. Like, do you think this affects his legacy?
I think his legacy has already been very, very impacted, regardless of whether this goes. His defense that he came with, I mean, it wasn't even much of a defense. His team sent in supplements that he was taking to be tested for Turinabol, which again is a steroid that is taken orally. There's very little research done. There has been very little research done on this substance, but it's very popular among athletes. What it does essentially is you're able to build muscle mass, but also retain water at the same time. So it's in and out. And it's kind of a sly move on his part. And, you know, his defense was, I have no idea how it got in my system. You guys tested all my supplements. I have no idea. He also admitted to not watching or not taking the USADA tutorials. I don't know if you heard about that, but all fighters have to go through a tutorial process with USADA. I don't know if that's a video thing or a lesson thing that they have to sit through, but he admitted to CSAC that he did not partake in those tutorials. His signature was forged by his management team.
Wow.
And yeah, I think what CSAC did is they gave him a huge fine, revoked his license. And I think what they're doing here is they're kind of deferring to USADA. They're going to let USADA play ball with him. But where I think that, you know, when I said there's a smidgen of a chance that he's able to compete in the next year or so, MMA, man, USADA is supposed to be kind of like this third party that, you know, is overseeing UFC, making sure everything goes well, making sure the fighters aren't doping, but they are being paid by the UFC. And they, you know, there's reason to believe that they may be lenient just because Jones is such a huge name, and banning him for a significant amount of time would hurt the UFC.
For sure.
And the UFC could easily, they could easily tomorrow just be like, F USADA and be done with that. But if the UFC wants to maintain its integrity, they're going to have to put their faith in USADA that they do well. And as far as your legacy question is concerned, I do believe that his legacy has been impacted. His legacy was impacted long before this, and he just seems to keep digging himself deeper. It didn't seem like his team or him showed up prepared for this meeting yesterday. All he had to say was he swore up and down. I watched the whole thing, man, and I'm tired of listening to John swear and apologize. And I know you're a huge John Jones fan, Ray, but his character is definitely called into question, and that's going to be something called into question as well when he sits before USADA. His USADA meeting has yet to be set. However, if they do go with a 1-year ban, then that would be retroactive to last July when he last fought, which means he would be eligible to fight again after July. If it's a 2-year ban, then he'd be eligible to fight the following July of 2019. And if he's facing the 4-year ban, which is the max that USADA could go for after his second doping infraction, then we're not going to see him till he's 34 years old, at which point he could still compete. What is your opinion on his legacy? Being a Jones fan, I mean, do you want to fucking vouch for your guy here? Because
yeah, I mean,
time and time again, he just gives us reasons to doubt him.
Yeah, I know. It's just crazy because you have a guy that's just so good at what he does, and he doesn't need all these crazy supplements he's trying. His only loss is from completely dismantling the guy on the ground. That's his only loss from throwing an illegal elbow because he was beaten. That fight should have been stopped way before those illegal elbows. And like I said, like he was destroying that guy. So it sucks that someone who's never really lost. I mean, he's never lost. Like I said, his only loss was from beating the shit out of someone. So to have someone that's so dominant against not even just like lower ranked opponents, but against the highest of the highest ranked opponents that you could give him, and he just completely dismantles all of them. And it's just kind of like, does that all go to waste? Like, it just sucks that you have to think that way because of the poor decisions he makes. And it's kind of, it sucks that he's a great champion, but like you said, his character definitely comes into question when you have him. Like he said, he's been popped for coke. He's been in a hit and run incident against a pregnant woman, and just all these crazy stuff that he's just in a wild life. And it sucks because like he's such a dominant champion, and he's honestly a lovable guy. Like he's a great guy. He just makes terrible decisions. We're talking about a guy who said he parties hardcore like a week or two like before his fight, so he can hit his little safety where he goes into saying that, the reason I lost, like if I lose, it's because I partied too hard. Which is crazy to think that he partied, like he gets blackout drunk before his fights, like, and that is just insane to me, and that's just a poor decision on his behalf. But hey, he still won the fights. And just to kind of sum it all up, I hope for the best for him. Hopefully he doesn't get too hard of a suspension because I want to see him fight again. Like he's one of my favorites. But just to kind of like throw a curveball at you, does this? I know everyone's a fan of Anderson Silva, but he actually recently got popped by USADA for using steroids.
Right.
Does that affect his legacy?
Well, what it does, man, is it definitely presents a conflict as far as a fan's perspective goes. I don't know if you followed Major League Baseball, but Major League Baseball went through about 15 years ago, went through a huge kind of doping scandal where a lot of guys were getting popped, and a lot of these legends that we held to such a high standard, Sammy Sosa, Barry Bonds, Mark McGwire, like all these guys were getting popped, and these guys are barred from the Hall of Fame because of that. But they were really just trying to get that competitive edge because everybody else was cheating. Lance Armstrong, a guy who was brought down because of his steroid use and his PED use. He essentially came out. It was to come out that yes, he did have an edge and he did use those substances, but the whole sport was dirty. And so it's hard. It's hard kind of comparing these guys. I think we have to evaluate guys, at least in MMA or in the UFC, on kind of like a pre-USADA level and then a post-USADA level. Anderson now has popped twice in USADA, I believe, right? This is a second infraction, and we don't even know what's going to happen with him. I do think that it affects their legacy because if the UFC brings in a commissioning body like USADA to level the playing field, got to kind of play by the rules at that point. And anything that happens afterwards, you're going to be considered a cheater. Maybe not by hardcores like us, but at least by the general public. And a lot of people consider Anderson the GOAT. I have a hard time kind of placing him, especially when he's fought in the same era as a fighter like GSP, George St. Pierre, who's never tested positive. So it's definitely hard, like kind of ranking these guys and evaluating their legacy. Like I said, it needs to be kind of like on a pre-USADA, post-USADA basis, and we are in a USADA world. We are in a world, an MMA or a UFC world that is governed by USADA, and these guys need to know the rules. And whether Jones took the steroid intentionally or not intentionally, it doesn't even matter what you or I think about that. It just matters that it was in his system, and he had an edge, and he had an edge over Cormier. A lot of people like to underestimate the effects of these steroids that these guys take, but these are supplements that when they react with the body, they account for more strength, more agility, better cardio. I mean, your whole game is enhanced. And if I'm Cormier, obviously, I mean, this is an old story because he popped back in July. We knew about this in July, but if I'm Cormier, I'm thinking that I can beat a clean John Jones. I'm thinking like it's whatever. You can't even say that. It's just really hard and it's really tricky. But most of all, it just freaking sucks because what it does is it screws with the integrity of our sport. MMA is still a rising sport. UFC is still on the rise, and we don't want the integrity of our sport to be compromised like the outside viewer. John Jones is such a big name, such a huge name. He draws, and you don't want a guy who's constantly popping to be associated with our sport, because we have plenty of active fighters and plenty of champions and plenty of great fighters who are able to accomplish these great things without the use of drugs, without the use of steroids. So when it comes down to a legacy thing, I think it's to each his own. When it's all said and done, maybe in Jones' career, like you said, he's still a young guy. Even if he does get the max 4-year ban or he gets a 1-year or 2-year ban, I definitely think we'll see him back in the octagon or fighting for another promotion. But that's all I can say as far as his legacy. Do you kind of want to respond to that, or before we wrap up?
Yeah. Like, I mean, I completely agree with everything you said. Like, his legacy could potentially be like tarnished, but also it comes into play where it's saying like, does he get another chance? Or is the UFC fed up with him? Does Dana like, no, we're done with this guy, or do we keep him? You know, it really sucks that we're all in this position where we're kind of like, man, is this the great John Jones? But he's the cheating John Jones. It's kind of like it sucks. And I like I said, like, who knows what the UFC wants to do now? Like, do they give him another shot at this? Like, what if he comes back, beats Daniel Cormier again, and he gets popped again? Then what happens? It's just chaos.
It's chaos, man. And if I'm Dana White, I mean, I don't even know what to think. Dana White had already stated when Jones popped for UFC 200 and squandered that whole main event, that he would never put John in another main event again. And he ended up rescinding on that and did put John in a main event at 214 against Cormier in Anaheim. And that it sold a lot of pay-per-views, had a lot of eyes on it, and what do you know? It's just another blown, another card, another fight, another John Jones headline. I mean, can we see this guy in the news for something good? That's all I got to say. But we're going to have to just wait and see, man. And I think with that, I think we had a good podcast without Tommy. I mean, no offense, Tommy, but like, I think this was a good show.
We miss you.
Also, next week, I am going to be in Cocoa Beach, Florida, so I will not be joining you guys. You guys are going to have to take over my host responsibilities. Hopefully, you do as well as I do. But,
we'll hold it down. Hold it down
for me, bro. The next week of Totally Recalled MMA is going to be without Cal. But you guys are going to be good because you guys know how to really break down fights. And,
I also just want to say we really do appreciate everyone tuning in and listening to us. Like, even if it goes from 10 views to 20, 30, it doesn't matter. Like, we just appreciate anyone who's out there willing to just give us a listen. So just thank you guys all for supporting us.
Yeah. Thank you guys all so much. And we still have a lot of work to do on the site or on our YouTube channel. Our audio podcasts are coming soon. We have to figure out how to get all that done. But they are coming soon. We definitely want to make our content more accessible for viewers. We just want to keep doing this. I think 4 weeks going on now is like really good for us. Just the fact that we're able to get together every Wednesday night and get this up. It's a great feat. And, I love talking MMA with you, bro.
Yeah, man. It's dope. I look forward to keep doing this every Wednesday, like you said, and hopefully we blow up from this. Like I said, we appreciate everyone tuning in. Retweet us, follow us. We got a website, so we'll keep everyone updated.
All of that, yo. And definitely watch UFC 222 this weekend, or just keep posted on it, because these guys next week, our co-hosts, Tommy and Ray, they're going to break that shit down, and it's going to be good. We're going to see who these winners are. We're probably going to get upset on our calls. Like always. But, with that, I'm going to say my piece. This has been Totally Recalled MMA podcast number For Ray Stayer, peace, bro.
Hey, we out. We out.
We out, y'all. We'll catch y'all next week.